This is 8-Minute Climate Fix, a podcast helping you understand the energy and climate challenge in just a few minutes. I'm your host, Paul Schuster. Corporations are faced with a couple of options when they decide to invest into renewable energy. On the one hand, the greenhouse gas protocol, at least for now, allows companies to just go out and purchase a certificate indicating that their power is renewable. It's not as bad as I made it sound there. There is some logic behind it. But those certificates often come from older, established wind or solar projects that have been generating power for a while. What if we wanted to ensure that our purchase brought new renewable power online, preferably displacing a gas plant or coal plant in the process? Many corporations lean into this more rigorous effort by demanding that their power purchase meet an additionality requirement. And here's the crux of today's episode. How effective is additionality in helping bring new renewable power online? As the demand for renewables has gone up, have we outpaced this dated concept? I'll go into a discussion on what additionality is, how it's measured, its history, and why it may not actually apply in today's environment. 8 minutes. It's how long it takes the sun's rays to hit Earth, or about how long my newly mulched front yard looked pristine before my dog decided to roll around in it. Let's get it on. When a corporation decides to buy renewable energy, the easiest way for them to do that is to buy renewable energy certificates, RECs, from a generator. Every megawatt hour that solar or wind project creates power, that generates a REC. So yes, a REC is directly tied back to renewable power. RECs have two markets. One is the compliance market, where state regulators may require that their in-state utilities provide a certain amount of their electricity from renewable sources. The other market is the voluntary market, where companies or individuals can purchase RECs and help to stimulate investment into renewable energy projects. The idea being that there's only a set number of renewable projects generating only a set number of RECs, so if we drive up the demand for those RECs, more projects will get built. The problem is that this never really materialized in reality. The RECs were never in enough demand to drive the price up, and so they never really were of enough magnitude to help determine the validity of a new project. The owner of that project loved the marginal income, but it wasn't determining for them whether the asset was going to get built. Which is why there's a bit of controversy around corporations who rely upon just buying RECs to comply with their greenhouse gas Scope 2 emissions. Are they really doing any good if they aren't bringing new power onto the grid? Additionality was meant to change that dynamic. The term is meant to indicate that the corporation was doing something to help a new project get built. But since RECs are priced so low, it usually had to be through something else. In this case, companies agreeing to buy the power from a new facility, giving the asset a guaranteed revenue stream and allowing them to obtain financing to get that project built in the first place. The RECs that were bundled with that power now could genuinely be associated with bringing new power online, which worked as a good mechanism for a while, especially during those early years of renewable energy adoption when project developers were fighting for corporate offtake. Today, though, the world has shifted, and there's a lot more demand for renewable power than there is supply. The growth of AI-related data centers, of electrification of society, of EV transportation, developers with viable generating projects now have a lot more choices than they did before, which brings up the question as to whether additionality is still a useful consideration. For instance, it's really meant to measure that a company is having a material impact on moving a project that would not have been built otherwise forward. But if the grid is demanding more power and viable renewable projects are there, does the corporate involvement really move the needle? Or put another way, if 5 corporations are all looking at the same renewable energy project, does the first one in who signs that contract and purchases that power, do they get to claim additionality? In all likelihood, what they're being rewarded for is being the first to the table. That project would likely have been built anyways, supported by another corporate buyer. So where's the real impact? Or let's take it a bit further and think about the reason additionality was important back in the day. Google used to argue that additionality was an important concept because it ensured that renewable energy was being built instead of a new gas power plant. The additionality intent was to displace fossil generation from coming onto the grid. So, how's that doing today? Even a cursory scan of the electricity landscape reveals that hyperscalers and data center developers are investing heavily into new gas-fired power facilities for their big digital infrastructure. But those fossil generators are backed up so far that there's an overdemand for gas generation as well. Each additional solar facility that comes online isn't displacing a gas facility that would have otherwise been built. That pipeline is full. We're simply adding new power to the top of the stack. Additionality was a helpful concept during days of slow demand and high supply, but as those dynamics have inverted, the usefulness of the concept has evaporated. The problem is that we still have regulations, protocols, and commitments that all look to additionality as a key part of their strategy. So, what do we replace it with? Is there another way to get to the core of that concept that it was originally meant to do? Ensure that investment by a corporation into renewable power actually brings a renewable power project online instead of a gas project? I don't have an answer here. I know, it's super lame of me to throw an episode out here just complaining about a misunderstood concept without offering up an alternative. But I've been thinking about this for a long time now, and I still haven't come up with a reasonable alternative. So let's throw it out to you, to the audience. Additionality is dead. What replaces it? Is it another term, another way to measure impact, or are we shifting more into regulatory requirements or utility capacity planning? We know we don't just want companies to be buying RECs from existing projects, but how can we make certain that their procurement is having the maximum impact that it can? There's a link in the show notes. Feel free to drop me a line with your thoughts. I'm Paul Schuster, and this has been your 8 Minutes.